The Māori Biodiversity Network is an independent, not-for-profit, working to protect the taiao. So who better to talk now than its CEO, Melanie Mark-Shadbolt, is with us live in studio. E te tumawhakara, tēnā koe.
Ai.
Welcome to the hui. Let's ask the obvious question. Predator-free 2050, achievable?
Yes and no. Yes,
Okay.
definitely achievable, but probably not by 2050.
Why not?
I don't think we've invested enough money in it, as the news item before showed, and I think that we need to bring communities on board. So a lot of the technologies that Cameron is talking about and others are talking about, especially in the gene tech space, rely on social licence. They rely on communities wanting those technologies in their backyards, and you will know, as well as many people watching will know, New Zealanders by and large have a bit of an aversion to toxins being dumped from the sky onto their property. So there's lots of conversations that need to be had before we can scale up to the level of, to the level we need to do to eradicate by 2050.
It seems, though, that the technology is working, right? And the technology is here now. So should it be done in conjunction with people on the ground and boots on ground?
Definitely,
Right.
yeah. You can't do it without people as well. I mean, predator-free relies on goodwill and it relies on people buying into the kaupapa. That's why we have it. That's why it's an ambitious goal. People want it and people are motivated. And by and large in New Zealand, the biggest investment we have in conservation and in environmental management is people on the ground. It's communities giving their time and their own money to these efforts.
Are you looking at this from a much more direct kaitiakitanga responsibility perspective as well as an employment perspective, Mel?
Both, yeah, definitely. Yeah, communities who care about their places, the things that define them, they are the ones that work on the ground to eradicate pests. They work to eradicate moths or butterflies or fruit flies or whatever incursions hit their whenua, their communities. Māori and non-Māori are the people who drive governments and drive politicians to make this a priority.
And when Cam says things like we can save endangered species, do you agree just the time factor is the issue here?
Definitely,
Okay.
yeah.
So when the Minister says, the Minister of Conservation says that we might not be able to do that the goal is aspirational, but we might not be able to afford that, what do you say?
Yeah, again, I completely understand where that comment comes from. There are a lot of species to save. We have 4,000 species in New Zealand that are at risk, threatened, one of the highest rates in the world, if not the highest. So there's a lot of work to be done and it's going to cost a lot of money. And at the moment, we don't prioritise conservation or the environment in New Zealand. We prioritise other spaces and places. And if you look at the budget of Department of Conservation versus the budget of the Ministry for Primary Industries, you can see that exact you can see that exact decision of where we're going to invest. So, we need to prioritise investment in conservation if we want to save species. But it's a naive comment, that's all I'd say. It's a naive comment.
Do you think we need to get real here?
Yeah, we do.
I'll tell you what, get real.
Yeah, I think that everyday Kiwis are probably unaware of how bad our environment is and how much is at stake and how much is threatened. We see good news stories and we're really good at conservation in New Zealand compared to some other places. We're really good at telling the story of what we're doing and saving our endangered birds in particular. It's a really feel-good story that we can sell to the world. But we're not telling the other stories about everything else that we're losing every day. And conservation is a web, and that's what Cam said right at the end. Our ecosystem is a web and it's all interconnected. So if you're not saving the ngangara, then you're not saving the manu. And they all have to be, they're all equally important if we want our ecosystems to work.
Can I ask you about Mātauranga Māori here? Because I know Tira Whakamātaki has done some real work. Kurereo Taiao, for example, one that I attended in Rotorua not too long ago. So there's been a real exploration into Mātauranga Māori. Are these solutions seriously being looked at as a way that can help us potentially achieve predator-free by a certain date and time as well?
In our communities and at place, they're definitely being taken seriously. When we're examining our own pūrākau all the time to look for connections in our whakapapa, to see where solutions might lie. We're also examining, our traditional trapping methodologies and how we used to look after our mara. So all of those are being looked at by people at place, by our communities, by our hapu and by our iwi. They're not being scaled up and they're not being taken seriously in terms of investment in the research that aligns it and how it can be integrated, or wraps around it, and how we can integrate it into everyday, conservation practices.
So are you saying when we talk about get real Aotearoa, that one of the solutions that we need to get real about is mātauranga Māori?
Yeah, we need every knowledge system, so yes.
Okay, can I ask about Dock Estate?
Yeah.
And what some people call the potential, others might call the threat of mining on Dock Estate. Your view?
I'm against mining on the Dock Estate. I'm against exploiting the Dock Estate for economic gain, in large part because we've only got 30% of our land in conservation estate right now, and we can't afford to lose any more. So I would be adverse to giving up good biodiversity land for industries that still aren't proven. We don't know how much of that money will stay on shore. Some of the research has said that less than 4% of the money actually stays on shore, so I'm sceptical around the economics. But I also have heard the rhetoric that we can give up some of the PCL land, some of the more rubbish land for mining, and I don't think that that's honest either. I don't think that we're actually going to give up rubbish land for mining. We want the good land on the coast. I know that communities are probably seeing this as a win for them, and potentially it's going to grow their regional economy, and I understand that, but I think there are other ways around it. We've talked about ecotourism briefly as well. Yeah.
Mel, thank you. Thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. Tēnā koe i o kōrero.
Kia ora.
Ngā mihi nui kia koe. Mau Mark-Shadbolt,